How's everybody doing today? Yeah, this is the last service here for us. That's an awesome moment, humbling moment. As I was sitting over there processing and just watching this moment, there are so many more people here than were when we first started. This day means so much to me and many of you who have been here since the beginning. And this place will always hold a lot of special memories for me. One of my favorite is right here. This is a corner to you right now, but it is where our very first baptism ever held. And me and a few people, we spent a lot of hours trying to process the first baptism, how we were going to do it, because, we don't have a tub or anything like that, like a lot of churches and stuff. And I will never forget the first day. We're excited. We had several people going to be baptized, and we started putting water in that. And then I had people that are much, much smarter than me would look at me and be like, "Nick, I think that's enough water." And I'm like, we can do a little bit more. They'd be like, "Okay, cool." And they'd be like, "That's enough." "Nah, we can." And I kept pushing it. I'm like, "It'll be fine." And they're looking at me and my size, and I'm like, I don't think you get buoyancy. And so anyway, I kept pushing it. If you were here, you know what happens. If you weren't, you probably can predict it. We got 3 people in this tub, and 3 people are a lot more than 0 people, right? And then we added waves to the tub, and we dunked them a whole deal. And Jesus did not hold the water into the tub, okay? That's all I'm going to say is there was a tidal wave of water that came back. It went from a baptism service to a foot washing service for the first 3 rows. It was awesome. Electrical things sparked. We had a light that blew up. I mean, it was like, people were worried about getting electrocuted. I just thought they were filled with the Holy Spirit. It's just a different thing, okay? It was awesome. It was a great moment that we had, and actually it's one of my favorite moments, and it happened because we had this amazing small beginning that we didn't have it all figured out. We didn't have all the stuff that other places had, and I never want to forget those moments, because it's so easy to despise small beginnings. It's so easy to get kind of frustrated, and yet I look back, and the moments that I most cherish have to do with the fact that we didn't have it all in the beginning. We had so many people here today who every single week, this is the last time, very, very grateful for the last time they have to set up the 1,000 feet of pipe and drape that we set up every single weekend. They get here every week at like 6:30 in the morning and set up for hours and tear down after you're long gone. And I'm so grateful for those people. I hope I never forget that. I'm so grateful for the moments that we had in here. We had creative, unique services where one service, we hung signs all over the auditorium, and people worked effortlessly and tirelessly to create those environments. We had situations where one weekend we decided to give away. I preached hard on money, and people thought we were going to take up an offering. We gave away an offering, and we gave away thousands upon thousands upon thousands of dollars that day. It was awesome. Talk about people shocked. And attendance next week, high, okay? Like, everybody's coming back to that church. We're like, I don't even know if I believe about Jesus, but that was great, They gave me cash. It was great. I never want to forget those moments. I never want to forget all the hard work that went into building this stage right here, this environment right here. You got to see a glimpse of it. But when we started here at River Lake, we affectionately referred to this room as the clown room, because it really looked like a clown color just threw up all over all the walls, like purple and orange and blue and green and red. It was crazy. And there's so many people that sacrifice their time, their money, their energy to create an environment where we could carry out our mission to make it easy for everyone being the key, everyone to find and follow Jesus. And a few moments ago, I was brought back to the moment before we launched it all, to a moment that I didn't say this the first 2 services, but a moment that was right behind that wall right there, where our worship leader told me he was quitting. He had to go to Florida, and we were 1 week out. Maybe 2 weeks out, I don't remember what it was exactly. And I remember all the doubt and all the insecurity and all the frustration and all the stuff that kind of came rising up in me in that moment. And I put my hand on that wall, on that metal beam, going, God, what are you doing to me? What's happening to me right now? Like, God, you brought me this far, and it's a moment I hope I never forget. As a matter of fact, when we're done here, I'm going to take a picture of that beam. Because as we sing Do It Again, it means something to me that it doesn't mean to you. It means God came through in ways I never thought possible. And you being here today And not the first or the second, but the third service, one of 3 services full, is a promise that God has fulfilled of a vision that he gave me so many years ago. That we're in year 4, and it's incredible as I look back. As I look back at a small group of people who came together and said, you know what, we want to start a church, a different kind of church. And our mission is very clear, to make it easy for everyone to find and follow Jesus. And we have done that. It's incredible to see what God's done so far. And next week, you know the only difference? It's just a new building. It's exciting. It's awesome. I can't wait. And we've been working so hard for it. God's done so many things. But at the end of the day, what I find amazing about our church, what I find so special, what I find so great, and what I never want to forget is not the building itself. Like Ralphie's will always hold a special place in my heart, but not because of the video games, okay? I'm not going to walk around going, I really miss those video games. No, that's not it. I'm not going to walk around going, man, I can't bowl today. Like I never once bowled while I worked here. I'm not going to walk around going, oh, I wish I could skate today with the kids. I can't skate. I got a bad ankle. I'll fall over. It's embarrassing. No one wants to see that, okay? No. What I hope I never forget, what I will cherish, why River Lake will hold such personal place in my heart. It's because of you. It's because of the people. It's because we really are different in how we handle church, that we really are a community of people. And part of this movement is to make it easy for everyone to find and follow Jesus. And since day one, we have stayed on mission with that key word of everyone. In fact, I really do believe that the reason that God has blessed us, the reason that we went from a small group of people to a first service, to a second service that got filled up also, to a third service that's filled up now, to we need to start a building campaign, to I don't think we have enough money, to we got a building now right now, we got a bigger building with double the size of the chairs and everything like that. Now the reason I believe that we're going to fill that up too is not because we're special and not because the building's awesome, the building's just too. I believe that we're going to continue to flip this town upside down and impact it in a way that has never been seen. Not because of the tools, but because of the people. Because we are on mission. It's clear and simple. And since day one, we have refused to deter from that focus. And today, as we celebrate the last day here, as we celebrate the transition from this place to another place, I wanted to remind you of our mission, but I also wanted to caution you. Maybe challenge some of you. Maybe encourage others of you. Because something happens in the first church that I think could easily happen to us. See, we're actually not in the middle. We're wrapping up this series, Acts 29. Today's the last day. And we've been looking at the first church and what it brought. The innocence that it brought, the purity that it brought. There's this real genuineness with it that's unique. And we're taking a look into it and trying to learn some stuff, trying to figure some stuff out. And something happens roughly 4 years into the church. Something happens roughly 4 years, and we're about 4 years, about the same time that kind of keeps me up at night, that kind of gives me my focus, that really is ultimately my responsibility when it comes to the mission and vision of the church, that I just want to remind us of, because I never want to get to a place where they got. And it's so easy and so tempting. And something happens that I want to unpack for you today together as we kind of make this transition and just remind us of why I believe God has blessed our church the way that he has blessed it. So if you got a Bible, I want to encourage you, open up to Acts chapter 9. We're going to look at it. If you don't have a Bible, we'll put it up on the screen for you. But Acts chapter 9, verse 1, here's what it says. Meanwhile, Saul, before I go any further, I got to give you some context on this guy named Saul, because some of you not familiar with him. If you're not following the story too much, Saul was this guy that a few chapters earlier was a part of a mob that killed Stephen. Now, you probably don't know who Stephen is either, and that's okay, because Stephen was probably our modern day a staff member. He was a deacon. He was a guy that really served the church. He was in a leadership role. He loved the church, was this very popular, kind of pretty famous guy in the first church. They wrote about him. That's how big a deal he was. He was, a few chapters ago, brutally dragged out, stoned, and murdered in front of a whole bunch of people. And Saul was there, and it says in the text in chapter 8, the next week, Saul loved it. Saul looked at what happened and was like, well, please, like, that was awesome. I got to get me some more of killing those people. And we start to read the story of Saul. Excuse me. And we see that Saul Saul really is a bloodthirsty, angry, bitter, religious person who thinks he's right with God because of his purity and his righteousness, and yet really is so far from God, it was ridiculous. We see that Saul's going after the first church, and he's trying to kill them all. And here's what it says. Saul was still breathing out murderous threats against the Lord's disciples. He couldn't stand them. He couldn't hate them. I mean, he couldn't love them. He hated them. He went to the high priest and asked for letters to the synagogues in Damascus, so that if he found any there who belonged to the way, whether men or women, he might take them as prisoners to Jerusalem. He didn't care about sex. He didn't care about gender. He didn't care about, if you lined up with that theology, you're wrong. I'm going to grab you. I'm going to kill you. This is not a nice person. I just want to be really, really clear. And I want to be really, really clear about his past, because sometimes people walk into the church and think to themselves, man, if you only knew what I did, you'd think I shouldn't be here. And I want you to know that Saul's probably worse than you. If you haven't went to local churches, grabbed people, dragged them out, killed them, you're JV compared to his sin, okay? Like, you're not that bad. Saul is one of, as he refers to himself in a different letter about himself, he says, I am the chief of all sinners. I am broken. If it's possible, I've probably done it. And the crazy part is, up to this moment, he thinks he's good with God because he's a religious person. He goes to the synagogue and he's memorized a lot of scripture, and he just does all these rituals. See, at the end of the day, and this is what terrifies me, it's what terrifies me for the church and for Christians around or the world, or people who consider themselves Christians, is it's so easy for us to look at what's external instead of what's internal. Paul, he changed his name to Paul. Saul in this story. Saul externally appeared to be a great, godly man. And internally, there was anger and hatred and bitterness that could not be quenched. So pick up the story. Saul, bad dude. He's on a journey, trying to kill people. He goes on, says this. As he neared Damascus on his journey, suddenly a light from heaven flashed around him. And we don't have time today to unpack it all. But if you would read the rest of the story, you would realize that Jesus reveals himself to him. And Saul's life is changed in an instant. That he goes from the bad guy to all of a sudden seeing who God is, seeing the errors of his way, and he changes everything about himself. And you read the story, it's a fascinating story, that all of a sudden he goes from persecuting the local church to going after and blessing the local church and trying to encourage it. He goes from the one who is persecuting other people to the one who is persecuted. They start to come after him. He is dynamically and radically changed. And I just want to pause here and say this from a pastor standpoint. If you're here today and you would say, yeah, Nick, I'm a Christian, and I would ask why, and you'd say, well, yeah, kind of, I believe in Jesus, God, I believe in Jesus, I believe in God, whatever. But your life is not radically different. I just want to challenge you. I want to challenge you to kind of question your faith. Because I believe, as I look at Scripture, you cannot have a real, and I mean real encounter with Jesus and not have it dramatically, dynamically change what you value, what you love, and where you go in life. He's not an add-on. So many people treat Jesus like this little thing, like, okay, yeah, I went to church, and I kind of like, yeah, I got my Jesus fix now. I got my thing. Yeah, so I got my stuff, and I still got my other things, and I got my things I love, but I got my Jesus over here, and I'm good to go. That's not how it works. That's not in the Bible. Jesus is not an add-on. He's God. He's Lord. He's Savior. He is the author of life and worthy to be praised in everything that we do. He's God. And Saul has a real encounter with him, and his life is radically changed. Much like our lives should be radically changed. And what we see is he goes away for about 3 years. Maybe a little bit more, maybe a little bit less. We're not quite sure how many months that was away. But as I look at the time frame and kind of figure it out, the first church is probably about 4 years old. Maybe a little bit less, maybe a little bit more, but they're about where we're at from an age standpoint. And everything up to this point has been going good. They've had some harmony. They had that one issue that we talked about, with sin issue, but for the most part, we don't record anything else. They're really doing good. They're changing the world. They're growing. It's awesome, much like we're kind of doing all that whole thing. And something happens. Saul wants to come to the table. Saul shows up, And he just starts knocking on doors going, okay, hey guys, hey, I want in. God's changed me too. I'm a different person. Hey guys, I want to be a part of the team. And here's what it says. It's Acts chapter 9, verse 26. When he, that's Saul, came to Jerusalem, that's the head of the church, that's the kind of the whole deal. He tried to join the disciples, but they were all afraid of him. The word tried in Greek means over and over and over and over again. It's not like a one-time thing. It's not like he showed up and like, hey guys, how you doing? And they all walked away. No. It's like he showed up to the party and they all left. He showed up to their house like, hey, Peter, James, John, and they like double bolted the door, okay? Like, we're not here. How you talking? I don't know. Like that was kind of the whole deal. He showed up to the synagogues, they left. Like wherever he was, he kept trying over and over again. They're like, no, we don't want any part of you. No, sorry. Here's why. Here's what I want you to see. Here's where we're going to spend the rest of our time together. Because not believing that he really was a disciple. Somewhere along the way, in the beginning of the church, it was like everybody's welcome. In fact, Peter stands up and preaches a sermon. Listen, anyone who repents, hey, you guys killed Jesus. You guys killed my brother, my best friend. You guys killed him. Welcome to the club. Just repent. We're good. Well, everybody's welcome. It goes from that, all inclusive. Everyone's welcome to the table too. Yeah, Saul, you're not. Yeah, Saul, listen, I know God can do great things. I know he saved me. I know he saved like these other people around here. But listen, I've heard what you did. I know your past. I witnessed it. I was there. I don't really believe Jesus can save you. I don't believe that he really was saved. All of a sudden, in the first church, a few years into it, its borders start to get a little bit smaller. Its walls start to shrink a little bit, and all of a sudden it goes from everybody to everybody who doesn't sin like us. Everybody who we have the same issues. Everybody who has the same patterns. Everybody who has the same past, whose same ethnicity, whose same political views, whose same background, whose same financial well-being, whose same whatever that is. It starts to shrink a little bit, and I believe in turn start to lose a little bit of its power because they didn't really believe it. As a church, next week we're going to open our doors to a community. And I believe God has blessed us not because we're awesome, not because I'm great, not because, this environment was so amazing. No, I believe God's blessed us because we as a community, as a body of believers have always said, listen, if you're coming, we're good. Just show up. I don't care what you look like. I don't care how you're dressed. I don't care what you did last night. I don't care, who you hung out with. I don't even care what you smell like. I might seat you over on the other side, but I don't even care what you smell like, okay? Just come on in. Like, everybody's welcome, and we have received that, and we've seen life change, and it's been incredible. I never want us to get to a point. I never want us to get to a point where this starts to creep in, and we start to pick and choose and go, listen, everybody's welcome unless you've got that sin pattern, unless you've got that background, unless you've got that addiction, unless you've got that issue. I've heard about so-and-so, and you hear about so-and-so, and I can't believe they're here, and what are they doing here? I know what they did last night. I mean, I was with them at the same place, but I was hiding. They were public, the whole deal. Like, what are you doing here? I never want us to get to that point. And so I want to ask us 3 questions that I think the disciples had to answer, whether they did it publicly, whether they did it intentionally, or whether they just kind of had to process it and just kind of processed over time. I don't know what happened, but 3 questions they had to answer that we need to answer. Number 1 is this: do I believe in life change for anyone? See, they didn't initially. They believed, oh yeah, Jesus can change lives except for Saul. You know who Saul was? Okay, I've heard about his past. He's a murderer, and he probably did this and da-da-da. Like, no, not him. Do I really believe that Jesus can change anyone's life? Because, man, it's so easy to hear stories about people, right? It's so easy to hear gossip about people. It's so easy. So easy to deal with that. Believe it or not, people gossip about me all the time. It's crazy, isn't it? It's so easy to believe the gossip, to believe the stories, to believe the stuff, and to sit back and go, see, I knew it wasn't true. I knew it didn't change him. I knew it didn't happen. I knew it didn't. They had to answer the question. Saul, we've heard stories about you, and I've seen you. I don't know if God can change somebody that far. As a church, we're going to always answer yes, that you know what? We really do believe that no one's too far for God. That there's nothing you can do. There's nowhere you can go, nobody you can hang out with, nothing you can drink, eat, be a pattern in your life. There's nothing that is too far for God. That God so loved the world that he gave his Son. Whosoever believes in him should not perish but have everlasting life. There are 0 qualifiers on that statement. None. It is an everyone statement. As a church, we need to always answer yes. Number 2 is this. They had to ask the question, can I forgive everyone for what they've done? Because, man, isn't it true in churches, we forgive the people that we like and the people that sin like us because it's their sin, like, okay, yeah, no one's perfect, and oh, yeah, the whole deal. But, man, it gets really weird and funky when people sin very differently than us, and we're very uncomfortable with their sin. We don't like their sin because of the implications of it. They had to wrestle with this because I just got to believe at some point they were sitting down at a table. You got James and John and Peter, and they're all talking. And Paul's there, Saul's there, knocking. I just got to believe they had a conversation going, are we really going to let this guy in? You know he killed Stephen, right? You know, like he was laughing on the corners. He was smiling. He loved it. You know, he was the one that went to my neighbor's house and drug them out of their house, husband and wife, right in front of their kids. You know, like, can we really do this? Because it's easy to forgive people that sin like you. It's easy to forgive people who haven't really hurt you. But I just tell you right now, the disciples, they had very, 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 very real hurt. Because he brutally murdered their friend, probably in front of them. And those same men had to pick up that dead body and bury him. They had to make this decision. Yeah. I know God can change people. They probably got there somewhat quick. But can I forgive them? Because it's tough. It's tough, isn't it? When somebody sins against us. We're so glad God forgave us. We know how broken we are. But when it comes to somebody else and they sin against us, man, it just is messed up. And I just tell you, I want to be a church. I want to be a church as painful as it is, as messy it is, because it's so nice and neat to kind of create borders and create guidelines, sit back and say, listen, if you do this or you believe in this or you have this background or whatever, you can't be here. It's so nice and easy to have people the same color and the same background, the same ethnicity, the same financial situation. So easy. It's messy. It's messy when you start to talk about forgiveness and grace and the whole deal. Literally in this church, in the past several years, I've gotten text messages from people who says, Nick, I know we're a church for everybody. My ex showed up. Can I still be here? I've had people text me and go, listen, I had a boss who fired me a few years ago and I can't stand that person. Nick, I don't know what I'm going to do. What do you think I should do? I've had people sit back and go, listen, that person, they hurt me in a relationship previous and the whole deal, and I just don't know what I can do and whatever. And the whole deal is I sit back and go, listen, I don't know if I can forgive them. Listen, God may do something amazing to them. They may go to heaven. I just believe in heaven. They're going to be on the other side of the heaven, okay? Like I'm going to be over here, they're going to be over there. I want us to be a church who really believes in the gospel. Who isn't just glad that Jesus forgave us, but we will extend that same grace, that same mercy that God has extended to us onto other people, no matter what they have done. Because if we do that, that is what makes this church different. That is what makes the gospel different. That is what makes the big church different. Not that we like other people like us, but that we love people that are nothing like us and who have hurt us. That's what an atheistic world really struggles with, is when we're generous with our time, talent, gifts, and grace. Last one I had to start with is this. Am I willing to work side by side with all people? Again, it's easy. But Saul's request was pretty unique. Saul wasn't wanting to just say hi. Saul wasn't showing up and be like, hey guys, just want to say hi, check in, cool. No. Saul was showing up because he felt called. He had a ministry that was just like the disciples. And so Saul's sitting back going, hey guys, hey, you're an apostle, so am I. And they're going, I don't even know if you're saved, let alone apostle, okay? You want to preach, He's going, no. You saw Jesus raised from the dead? And they're like, yeah, so did I. How'd you do that? Yeah, I got a special revelation. He loves me more than you. I don't think he said that. But anyway, that's what I would say. Like I'm called to, oh, you can do miracles, James, John, that's really, really cool. So can I. Oh, you can preach really well and people get saved when you preach? Yeah, so can I. Yeah, we have the same call, and he's sitting back going, we need to work together because there is something bigger going on than our issues and our struggles. That everybody spends eternity somewhere. And that takes precedence over everything else. It's a perspective issue to step back and go, no. I can get past all the awkwardness, all the messiness, all the issues. Why? Because, listen, people are either going to spend eternity in heaven or hell. And that's all that matters. At the end of our lives, that's all that matters. And as a church, for me, that's all that matters. Some people have really wronged me in my past. We're good. If they show up, we're good. And we'll partner together. And we're going to flip this town upside down. Because it's all that matters. That everybody spends eternity somewhere. And there is a lost and dying world right on the other side of this wall right here. And they are going about their lives and they are doing their thing and they are thinking they're fine or they're thinking they're broken or they're thinking there's no hope. And we get the opportunity, the privilege to create environments and make it easy for everyone to find and follow Jesus. That's what we get to do. It's an honor. It's a privilege. I'm so excited about it. But what happens is over time, junk gets in the way, stuff gets in the way, relationships gets in the way. And I want to be a church that says, we're good. I don't care about that stuff. Oh, you wrong me? We're good. Why? Because, man, I've wronged God in such a bigger way. We can stand side by side. Why? Because there's something bigger going on. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. I love that statement. That needs to be our mantra. I don't care about your past. I don't care what happened. I really don't. We're a church who's been effective for one reason. We've stayed on mission. To make it easy for everyone. No boundaries. No borders. And just like Jesus spread his arms to die for you and all of your sin and all of your junk and all of your garbage, we will spread our arms and welcome and embrace for all those who have the courage and strength to drive into our parking lot. That is why we exist. That is why we do what we do. That is my heart. And as long as I'm the pastor, that is what our story will be. Now, with that said, I want to end today a little bit differently. I want to invite Chris on the stage. Chris is a worship leader. We hired him a few weeks ago. I don't know. Time flies. Somewhere around there. And Chris has a unique story. Or maybe it's not so unique. I don't know. But what I know is this. We interviewed several people. Some didn't make it on stage, some did. But in our interview process, the very first interview, I remember sitting and we were at a restaurant, and just before we even got started, Chris looks at me and goes, hey man, I got to let you know, I got a past. Now I have known Chris for a while. I have been one of his biggest fans. I believed in him for a while. And so I kind of knew that and I smiled and so we're good. And he started sharing some of his story. And it's not a great past. I'm going to let him tell you his past here in a second. But I'll tell you in that moment, and after that discussion, we as a church had to make a decision. Do we believe those questions? Do we believe yes? Because it's so easy to stand up and go, we're a church for everybody. But don't sit there and don't come in there and you better dress right and you better not sin like us and you better have different patterns. You better have a whole bunch. It's so easy to say. It's different to hire towards it. And I got to tell you, as you hear Chris's story, I want you to know I'm so excited about what God's done in his life. And I wanted you to hear it. Because we're never going to be a church that's ashamed of our past. We're never going to be a church that runs from the awkward and the messy. In fact, one of our core values, real, we're going to be really honest about it and authentic about it. And so for the next few moments, I'm going to ask Chris some questions to share a story. And really the first is this. I got questions on my phone, so I don't forget them. The first is, man, some of you know my story, some of you don't, but I grew up somewhat pretty poor, but I was okay. I was fine, And more importantly than my financial status growing up, I had two parents at all times who loved each other. They rarely fought. It was a Christian home. At the end of the day, if you would look at my upbringing, you'd probably look at me and go, you should be okay. I have zero excuses in my background. I had an amazing childhood, and I give my parents a hard time all the time, actually, just because I love them to death. But the reality is I had a great childhood. It was really good. My parents so set me up for success. That is not really your story, is it? Why don't you go ahead and tell us your background and your story?
Okay. My childhood was a little bit different. As he said, we were pretty poor. There was 9 brothers and sisters. My parents were older when I was born. My mother was 40, so most of my half-brothers and sisters had already grown up and moved out, and some of them had families of their own. My mother was a great woman. My father, on the other hand, was really abusive alcoholic. There were times when he was good, but when he would drink, he was really mentally, physically, emotionally abusive toward me and my mother. And a lot of my brothers and sisters never came around because they had the same experience as kids, so they got as far away from him as they could when they were old enough. My dad was really unpredictable. He hurt my mother and I quite a few times. We would try to sneak away in the night when he would pass out, and we'd try to sneak away. And there was a lot of times that I slept in my mother's car. She would drop me off at school. She would go to work, or I would go to work with her and sleep in the broom closet there. And she would take me to school. And school was an escape for me. I was always interested in music, and I would go to my mom's work and sing for quarters on the tables there, and go use them at the arcade. And I would use music and school as an escape from my home life. I was really good at pretending like everything was okay, and I didn't want people to know what was going on at home. But I constantly, when I was away from my mother, I constantly worried about my mother, if she was going to be okay, if she was even going to be alive when I got off a school bus. It was hard to deal with. But when I was about 12 years old, my father passed away. And it was a really mixed emotion time, because even though of all he put me through, I still loved him. And it was hard to lose my father. But at the same time, I was relieved that I didn't have to deal with the abuse anymore. I didn't have to worry about my mother anymore. My grandmother and my father both died in the same week. My mother had a really hard time, not just financially, but she went through some deep depression, and she was barely recognizable for a little while, and she toughed it out and she got through it, but without my help, because I was really selfish at that time, and instead of being there for my mother, I started looking for things to make me feel good about myself, about my situation, whatever. Started using drugs really early. Started taking my musical ability and using it in rock bands and country bands, and writing filthy, raunchy lyrics and exploiting that side of my talent. Recorded a few albums that were pretty bad. Some videos and some pictures out there of some of my, my past stuff that I'm not really proud of. I realized I could make money playing music pretty early on, so I ran away from home not too long after my father died, and I was singing in a rock band. I was making enough money to eat, basically, doing that, and to stay high. So I would sleep wherever I could, friends' houses, girls' houses, barns, cars, whatever. I would go to school sometimes, not very often. I went from being a straight A student, beta honor student, to by the time I was in high school, I was a truant, and I was in a lot of trouble. And the band that I was singing with, we wanted to record an album. We got an opportunity to go to California and record an album, and my school attendance was so bad that in order for me to miss the time to go do that, I had to either quit school or my mother was going to be put in jail for truancy. So I quit school and went and recorded an album at about 16 years old in California. Came back, I toured with that band a little while, and everything fell through. We thought we were going to have a great opportunity, and it fell through. And for a moment, I wanted to straighten up. I wanted to go back to school. I thought, maybe I still wasn't too late for that, but school wasn't willing to take me back because of my truancy and my behavioral problems at school. I showed out quite a bit in just about every way you can imagine to get in trouble at school. I did it. At that point, I never moved back home. I did make amends with my mother years later, and we have a good relationship now, but I was out of her life for a long time. I wouldn't even call her and tell her how I was doing. She worried herself to death over me. I was her youngest, her baby, and she worried a lot about me. I got my life on track a month or two at a time, a year at a time maybe, here and there, but I always went back to my old ways for years. Went through a pretty rough divorce, and that was a time that I kind of reverted really bad and started showing out and acting out really bad. I had a daughter at the time, a young daughter, and I was a terrible father for a long time. A lot of years of her life that I'll never get back, that I put drugs in front of her. I wanted to straighten up, and I tried a few times, but I always went back. I came into a time in my life where I just thought there was no turning back.
I think all of us on some level can relate to the up and down. Because your issue may not be drugs, it may be food, it may be porn, it may be money, greed, lust. I don't know. I believe most people have something on some level until they finally beat it. But many of us can relate to the fact that we do good for a while and come back and do good for a while and come back and do good for a while and come back to it. And there's a pattern in our life. And for some, there is this moment of I've gone too far. I talked about that. That for some of us, there is this lie in our head that says we're too far from God. If people only knew what I did, people only knew what I thought about, people only heard the gossip or the stories, whether they're true or they're not. It's why I read the story of Paul today, and Saul. Because Saul describes himself as the chief of all sinners. And he is the man that changed the world. That God did something incredible in him. Revealed himself, and there is life change after that. But Chris, you hit rock bottom. As many of us have different levels of rock bottom and whatever that is. But talk us through how you got out of the pattern. The pattern of good month, good year, bad year. I mean, because there's obviously a big change. And again, I've known your story and known you for a little bit now. Some stuff happened. How did you make that transition? What did God use, and how did he use it in a way to really kind of move you forward?
Well, I knew about God. I knew God. I was saved and baptized at a young age. I just had grown so far from God and turned my back and done so many things that I wondered, if I could ever be forgiven. I know they say everyone can be forgiven, but sometimes it's hard to believe when you're doing so many wrong things and you've turned your back on God so many times. I was living in California with Daniela. We were dating. She was pregnant. And she knew that I was lying to her about what I was doing. she decided she was going to move back home and just leave me to do whatever I was going to do. And I knew then that I'd been praying more, and I really wanted to change. I had an opportunity to come back and have a family that I wanted so bad, and to get my other daughter back in my life. I knew that I just had to straighten up, and the only way that I was going to be able to do that was with God's help. So I started praying more, and God put people every step of the way. As I look back, God put people that loved me in my life, in every place that I was, even in the darkest places. There was always someone. I was so lucky. Someone there cared and wanted to see me do better. I was really blessed. And God showed me that I could use my musical talents to bring him glory when a friend of mine invited me to, when I was going to move back, invited me to be a part of praise and worship. And God just worked a miracle in my heart. It made me change what was important. No longer things that were selfish, and it made me feel good for what mattered in my life. God just made a difference and showed me that he had all along had a plan for me. And it wasn't easy. Yeah. But God helped when nothing else would help.
Yeah. And so now you're here several years later, leading worship. Here's how I want to wrap this up. How many of you would love to be up here right now sharing your worst, dirtiest secrets in the world? Anybody? Anybody next week? You want to start? No? Yeah, I didn't think so. I don't care what your issues are. Anytime somebody stands up and says, hey, here's my junk, here's my stuff, it's incredibly hard. And so, Chris, could you share with us why you'd be willing to stand up here in front of everybody and talk about that? Because I didn't make him, just so we're clear. I asked him politely, but I was really clear that, hey, if this is something you want to do, that'd be great. If not, no big deal. So could you share with us why you were willing?
Sure. I really wasn't sure that I wanted to when I first asked, honestly. Scared to death.
So, Paul, real quick, just why were you scared?
I didn't know how it would come out. Mm-hmm. I didn't know if I would be able to articulate. I didn't want to seem unoriginal. Yeah. I wanted to. I don't know really why I was so scared, honestly. But it was a scary thought. Hey, stand in front of everyone and let them know some of the raunchy, terrible details of the things that I've done in my life. So, a lot of the things I've done, I'm ashamed. I wish I could change. But I do know that everything happened for a reason. And I know that I felt at one time like, even though God had already been in my life, that I'd done so much wrong, even if he could forgive me and love me, he could never use me. Wow. He could never use anything that I did at all to bring him glory. But he proved me wrong. And the gifts and the talents that he gave me, he had been stirring in my heart all along and through my whole circumstance and situation, that eventually I'd come out on the other side and be able to use my story for someone maybe that needs to hear it. Somebody maybe that can relate in one way or another, that's fallen out of a relationship with God, or that doesn't have a relationship with God, that no matter what you've done, he can not only forgive you and love you, but he can turn your story into something beautiful and use you to bring him glory.
That's great. I want to end today with a prayer for Chris. And I want to invite you as a church to pray with me. because he has such a huge responsibility to lead us in worship, to carry that burden of leading not just his team, but all of us every single week. And I can relate to that burden because I have a different burden, but anybody who's up here on the stage feels the weight of the lights. And if you're not sure how lights can be heavy, come on up one day. You will feel it. You will feel the looks. You will feel the potential judgment. You will feel all the insecurities and all the stuff, and you feel that. And so Chris, like me, like the rest of our leaders, he needs our prayer. He needs our blessing. He needs our grace. He needs our encouragement and love and support. And we're going to do that. And so I just want to invite everybody, would you all pray with me? God, thank you for the grace that you've shown me in my life, and I thank you so much for the grace that you've shown Chris and his. I pray that you would put a special anointing upon his life, that you would just bless him abundantly, that you would protect him and put a hedge around him, around his spiritual life, around his physical life, around his emotional life, that you would protect his marriage, you would protect him as a father, you would bless him as a leader. And I pray that you would help him, as in Joshua 1 says, that you would help him be bold and courageous. I pray that you would help him become, through the people here, through the support, through time, and through his disciplines, the man of God that we all need him to be. God, I just thank you for the opportunity that we get to serve alongside a fellow brother who has a different past, but we all have the same future together. God, thank you so much for your grace and mercy for all of us, every person in here. We love you, Jesus, and we thank you. Amen. So, I want to end it with this. I don't know where you're at. I can darn well tell you where we're going. Okay? Here's the question we need to answer. It's right here. Of whoever it is, of whatever it is, of whatever your issue is, of whatever the problem is, the question that we need to continually answer about the people that we struggle with, about the problems that we have is this. Do I trust what I know about their past, about their gossip, about their issues, about their stuff, whether it's real or fake? Do I trust what I know about their past or what God can do in their future? As a church, we will always believe the best is yet to come. We will always believe in God's redemptive nature and his power in our lives. We will always believe that through one prayer, one moment, one decision, one day can become day one in a trajectory that will change everything in a person's life. And we will always believe and be a church on mission to go into this world, to go into this city and make it easy for everyone, let me be clear, everyone, to find and follow Jesus. Because I don't care what your past is. I don't care what your denomination is. I don't care what your sin struggle is, what your political affiliation is. I don't care about anything about that. All I know for sure is that when Jesus is at the center of somebody's life, everything is different. Everything changes. And the best really is yet to come. So this week, here's my challenge to you. As you leave today, leave it all here. Leave all prejudice, leave all junk, leave all stuff. Leave your stuff and the stuff about other people here. As we walk into a new phase, as we walk into a new building, we will receive everyone with open arms. And we will flip this town upside down. Not because we're awesome, but because we're on mission. And we're in line with what God would want us to do and be and become. So would you all stand with me? The band is going to sing Do It Again because that is my prayer, that is my hope, that what God has done here is just the beginning, is just the start, that the life change stories that happened through Chris and happened through some of you is just the beginning, that he's going to do it again and again and again and again and again, over and over and over again. Because we never waver on our mission to make it easy, to sacrifice, to give, to live for other people, for everyone, to find and follow Jesus. Let's pray. pray. God, thank you so much for this church. Thank you for the privilege that I get to lead it. I thank you for the men and women on this stage that I get to stand next to. And I thank you for the men and women and children who are in the audience that I get to lead. God, I pray that as we exit today, it ends one chapter, but it's just the first chapter of a very long book. That we would be worth reading, that we would be an Acts 29 church, and that this would just simply be the next step into a destiny that flips this town upside down. God, do it again and again and again. We love you and we thank you, Jesus. Amen. I will not see you here next week. I'm going to see you in our new building. Have a great week.